welcome back. I thought I would answer the second most common question I get when people slide into my DMs and they have a little photo and I tap on it and I think, what am I going to see? And it's normally a rash. Well, most commonly it's acne and cystic acne and blocked pores, but secondarily it's something called perioral dermatitis. I'm not a dermatologist. I'm not medically trained. However, having suffered from perioral dermatitis, having had it diagnosed and treated by a dermatologist and by an aesthetic skin doctor as well, I've kind of learnt a little bit along the way. My first port of call will always be to say to you, if you've got any problem with your skin and your doctor can't help, and often GPs misdiagnose this, is to get to see a dermatologist if you can. Easier said than done in America than anywhere else, I know. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in some pictures of perioral dermatitis and I'm going to tell you the history of mine. A lot of beauty addicts get perioral dermatitis, and I suggest it's because of brands like The Ordinary. That's not to say that the brand is making products that aren't wonderful, it's just that people are using them incorrectly. Quite often I will get an email from somebody or a DM from somebody going, hey, I've just discovered The Ordinary and I've been talked into buying 15 products and how should I use them? And then they give me an entire list of really strong active ingredients, retinols, acids, vitamin C's at 20 and 30%, and they are layering them up on their skin and they are irritating their skin. So let's get back to basics. Perioral dermatitis is simply a breakdown of the barrier function of your skin, and it's called perioral because it tends to be around the holes in your face, the oral openings. So it starts often around the nose here, and then it travels down and around the mouth and onto the chin, and it sort of does this figure. And it's definitely not acne. It's definitely not a dry skin condition, but it kind of mimics both. The history of my perioral dermatitis is, it goes back a very long way. I was at Champneys many years ago on a magazine, probably 25 years ago. I was probably first a beauty editor. I was with my friend Jackie, who I know will be watching this, who now works for Tangle Teaser. The two of us had never had any problems with our skin. We were young and we were, you know, that sort of a generation where you've just like, nothing's wrong with my skin. I think I know what works and what doesn't, when really we were just young and naive and we'd never suffered from our skin. And we both had exactly the same facial. We had an Ayurvedic Indian facial, and what was used on our face was essentially a tub of what now would never be regulated paste full of, you could actually see the plants and the herbs in it. And she was sitting in a room a couple of doors down from me, and we had a cleanse and a tone and a, you know, all that sort of old school facial. And then they put this paste on our face. And on reflection, I should have asked them to take it straight off, but I was young, I was in my 20s. I didn't want to question anybody. Nowadays, I would know better. And it started to irritate here. Now, I have broken capillaries around here. My friend Jackie doesn't. In fact, I'll get her on the Real Women Real Makeup because she does her makeup really lightly, like the archetypical no makeup look, and she'd be a great one to get on. Anyway, she doesn't have broken capillaries, but I do have broken capillaries around here. So I was thinking, facials tend to irritate me around the nose anyway. In fact, having spent a lot of time traveling around skin testing labs, this is the area where they test for sensitivity because it's the most vascularized. So I was thinking, anyway, 20 or 30 minutes later, it was full on, I want to rip this cream off. And then they cleansed us off and I was left quite red and quite sore, but you know, it was probably my chakras being balanced. Anyway, spoke to Jackie later on and she said to me, did that mask really play up with your skin? And I said, yeah, absolutely it did. And within a week, both of us had what I now know is perioral dermatitis. And to this day, 25 years later, we are still prone to it, because once you have had it, you will be prone to it and you have to learn how to manage it. So I didn't know what it was. I would treat it with, so let's describe the symptoms. Very itchy, red, tight skin that would come out in tiny little bumps that were almost like little vesicles of clear liquid. Not pus, not like a spot where it's creamy or white totally clear. And what you'd do is you'd get it and it'd be dry and you'd scratch it and then it would be very sore for a little period of time, then it would become dry and crispy. And that was the itch, scratch, itch cycle. So what did I try on it? What didn't I try on it? I tried moisturisers on it. I tried exfoliating acids on it, the first generation. Nothing helped. Then I tried hydrocortisone cream, and hydrocortisone cream does work on it for about a week or 2 weeks. And then what happens is it rebounds and it becomes worse. It spreads. And at one point, I remember at the time I was wearing mineral makeup, at one point, and as a beauty editor, trust me, the one thing you'll need is great skin. I had literally like a dry, scabby rash right the way down here. And if I flew, it was worse. And if I was on holiday, it was worse. And if I wore SPF, it was worse. And at this time, I wasn't really using a lot of actives because I was young. I was in my 20s and in my 30s. Retinol wasn't even really around. They only had sort of turnaround cream, which would temporarily make it better, obviously, because it would exfoliate. Back in those days, the glycolic acid would exfoliate the dry skin. And then, honestly, I suffered with this on and off for 20 years. It would come and go, come and go, come and go. And one day I was at an aesthetic doctor's, a lady's called Dr. Frances Prenner-Jones, and she said to me, "What's wrong with your skin? Your skin doesn't normally play up." And I said, "Oh, I've had this on and off for years. I don't really know what it is." And she said to me, "It looks like dermatitis to me." And she prescribed this, and this is Metrogel, which is metronidazole in a gel form. And the argument was that it was a mild barrier function impairment, which is what it is, because essentially whatever you've put on your skin has irritated your skin and has impaired your barrier function. So your skin can no longer keep the bacteria out and the water in. So any bacteria that sits on your skin normally on normal healthy skin will suddenly irritate it and basically what the little vesicles are is the white blood cells running to the surface of the skin to try and repair the skin and get rid of any bacterial infection, fungal infection. Anyway, so Metrogel is metronidazole, but in a gel form. And I tried it on and off for about a year, and it helped clear it up, but it didn't really get rid of it. And then I was actually at Dr. Sarah Tonks's, and she's an aesthetic doctor, not a dermatologist. However, she's done a lot of courses in dermatology. However, what she had that nobody else had ever had who'd seen my skin before is she had suffered from perioral dermatitis. And she said to me, "That is definitely perioral dermatitis. What are you using on it?" And I said I was using Metrogel. And she said, "Well, that's no good. You've got the right active ingredient, but in the wrong base, because you've got to rebuild your barrier function. And that's in a gel, which is alcohol-based. What you need is metronidazole in a cream base. And this is ROSEX 0.75% cream. And this is your magic bullet, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, she prescribed FINACEA at the same time, which is azelaic acid, in case the skin was so dry and so crusty, because it goes through phases of being sort of these little wet vesicles that break and then it becomes dry and crusty. However, within about, and I'm not kidding you, after suffering for 25 years on and off, within about 4 or 5 days, this stuff has worked for me, and it's always the thing that I recommend people go and see their GPs to get. It is a prescription only cream, as are most of these creams I'm going to talk about. However, most doctors are not trained in dermatology to that level, and they often mistake it for a fungal infection, for acne. 9 times out of 10 you see it and it's very specific. You do not get it here or here. You sometimes get it around the outer edges of your eyes. It normally starts around the nose, simply because the nose is full of bacteria. So when active ingredients like acids and retinol are on your skin at night, if they fall into these creases here, they can irritate and crack this skin. Then the bacteria can set up the infection. This stuff is absolutely amazing, but you have to get it on prescription. Now, what's interesting about this is, I said to Sarah Tonks, "How do you know it's perioral dermatitis?" And she said, "Well, because it's my job," because she's an aesthetic doctor, "to test things." And I decided to give myself a peel, and I was battling it for 6 months. And then another doctor, in fact a dermatologist, said to her, "You've got perioral dermatitis." And she showed me a picture. I wish I had the picture to show you. She'd carried on treating it with acids, and it had spread across her entire face. It almost looked like rosacea. And this was the magic that got rid of it for her. Mine had never spread that far. It was just here. 1, 2, 3. Like a little Elizabethan sailor's a beard. It wasn't attractive. Anyway, my first piece of advice is go to your GP, try and get a sympathetic GP who understands skin. Try and get them to refer you to a dermatologist, but if you can, beg them for this. This is not going to do your skin any harm. Interestingly enough, the metronidazole, which is the active ingredient, is antibacterial, it's antimicrobial. But the action of this is anti-inflammatory. So what it does is it calms the inflammation in your skin at the same time as knocking back any microbial action on the skin as well. So it's a double whammy. As you can see, I've had that a long time. That was prescribed to me. It's by Galderma, by the way. I've got my original prescription here. I was prescribed this back in 2018 and I'm still using it now. I just keep it on hand, and when I scratch my skin, it gets slightly red. I scratch my skin and I think, oh, that's sore. It's a specific type of soreness. I put it on overnight and it just knocks it back. So there it is in its prescription form. And you might also get FINACEA as well. And FINACEA is azelaic acid, and that's to get rid of the dry skin, because what you end up with is this dry crustiness. Other things that people have been prescribed: hydrocortisone cream. Don't use hydrocortisone cream on it. It will help it temporarily. Hydrocortisone is a steroid cream, and as such, it knocks back your inflammatory response. And when your skin is overreacting to something. However, in the case of perioral dermatitis, your skin isn't overreacting. So that will work in the short term and make it worse in the long term. You'll get a rebound effect from that. So don't use that. I have also had followers that have been prescribed Elidel. And Elidel is an immunomodulator cream for chronic dermatitis. And I think this is a little bit like using a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. I'm sure it'll work in the long term, but really, this is strong stuff, and I would be careful using this in the long term. Just talking about perioral dermatitis is making my nose itch. You really don't need something that strong when I think for the vast majority of people, ROSEX will work. However, it's a stepped approach, and if ROSEX doesn't work for you and you've been suffering for a long time, then FINACEA and Elidel can work. I will put all the details of all the products down below. In the meantime, what do you use on it that's in your normal medicine cabinet on your bathroom shelf? Absolutely no retinols, absolutely no acids, in my opinion, apart from FINACEA, which is AZELAIC, which is massively anti-inflammatory. But for me, I don't put any actives on it at all. All I do is calm, 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 soothe, 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 repair, repair, repair. If ROSEX isn't enough on its own and my skin is slightly dry, I will go to a classic CERAVE. So this is their moisturising cream, and that's their facial moisturising lotion. Dr. Jart Ceramidin. The ordinary NMF, that's their natural moisturising factor. The new Paula's Choice Barrier Repair Moisturiser. And then my all-time favourite, the SkinCeuticals Triple Lipid Restore. All of those essentially are formulated to repair your skin's barrier function. And perioral dermatitis is a failure of your skin's barrier function. I like to joke, and I often do joke, that my skin is like an old handbag. I can put anything on it. But actually the truth of the matter is, it's not the retinols and it's not the acids that have messed up my skin in the long term. It was a tub of supposedly natural Ayurvedic skin gunk. And I know this because my friend Jackie still battles to this day every so often. And she's much more of the natural spectrum than I am. And she doesn't like to use prescription creams on her face. So she tries to repair it naturally. And every time I see her and her skin flares up, I always say to her, you really need to get that ROSEX back out. And I discovered ROSEX, in fact, partly by her, because she has a very sympathetic and empathetic GP who recommended metronidazole, but I was given it in the gel form, and you need it in the cream form because the cream is in a base that won't further damage your barrier function. I hope that's helped. So, full disclaimer, I'm not a dermatologist. I'm not a medical expert. I am purely somebody who has suffered and has been helped massively by brilliant doctors and dermatologists. And quick shout out here to the amazing Dr. Sarah Tonks, because although she is not a dermatologist, she is an incredible aesthetic doctor who herself had suffered from perioral dermatitis, and she was the first one to really help me out. It's like when people come into my DMs and they've got acne or they've got rosacea, I try to send them to a dermatologist who has either currently or in the past suffered from that condition. There's nothing like speaking to a dermatologist who suffers from pigmentation and knows how to treat it, suffers from acne and knows how to treat it, suffers from rosacea and knows how to treat it, because only they will truly understand your journey. All dermatologists obviously know so much more than I do, but that's my personal journey, and that's my little magic tube of cream that I will not be without. And also the things that, you know, if I'm abroad and I'm stuck without, then I will repair my barrier function with that, but nothing works more quickly for me than that. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing. I've promised this video a very long time, so I'm sorry it's overdue. I am completely jet lagged, back from a flight from Chicago, and funnily enough, had a little bit of an outbreak of POD while I was out there, so I used that. So thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing. Anything that you've used, prescription or not, that has helped with your perioral dermatitis, let me know, and I'll see you soon.